Quite like that profile of Leo. Right, morning. Welcome everybody. I think it's Tuesday. Yeah, more or less Tuesday. Anyway, so it's approximately Tuesday, 1 a.m. somewhere in the States. You know, Laura's awakened, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as usual. It's 1 a.m. in the morning. I don't know how she does it, but 8 a.m. here in South Africa. Welcome to Wisdom's Chats. We're talking billions in change this morning. So that should be an interesting one. And Jasper, who's totally distracted at the moment on his cell phone, introduced the why and the how concept as well, which I think we'll pick up on perhaps during the course of the discussion and find out why and find out how and see maybe whether we know what we're talking about or not. But yeah, with Lee here, we might be pulled into line. You know, she does try occasionally. But you know, with Trevor in place, it's almost an impossible task. So on that note, yeah, I'll just hand over to Trevor because this is your baby.
Wait. Where am I? Am I online? Sorry, I was off in another direction. Why are you handing over to me?
Because you're off in another direction, I've just got to pull you back into line every now and then.
Okay, all right. So Jasper, before he took that call, turned around and thanked me for pointing out to that video link. And in fact, I didn't do it for Jasper. I did it just because I wanted to push Ed's buttons. So I'm pretty keen to hear what Ed has to say on watching that particular video. But I must say, what was the idea of this guy, Bhargava? I'd never heard of him. And someone referred the video to me. You know what? It might have even been Leo. But someone in these discussion groups actually referred this guy to me. And then I thought, okay, this guy had said that he has a net worth of around $4 billion. Who is he? What does he do? I tried to have a look at his social media profile and all that sort of thing. He's got a couple of YouTube talks to a few groups of people in rooms. But it struck me that this guy in that particular video is doing something significant on the planet. And I thought to myself, well, he's looking to create a movement, but there's not much of a backup. If I had $4 billion behind me and I made a commitment to give away 99% of it, maybe I would take $1 billion of it and look to create a global movement behind this to make this the biggest thing since peanut butter. So I'm betwixt and between as to, I love the guy's concept. I love what he's doing. And I think we've actually got a link with him. But I'm asking myself in the question, why is he not throwing tons and tons at making this movement really take off? Because it seems to have all the elements of a great movement. And I don't want to steal Jasper's thunder. So I'd love Jasper to come in because he claims for the first time he did some homework ever based on a link that I referred him to. So now that he's off his international phone call with Bhargava, he can perhaps tell us a little bit more, I suppose.
Over to you, Jasper.
Yes. Sorry, I missed this very inspirational introduction by Trevor.
There was nothing there. Yeah.
But I did say thank you for giving me the link. So I wasn't sure what to expect from yesterday's introduction to this video, because the emphasis was very much on how he made his money through this energy drink, and one can take some sort of emotional issue that energy drink is exploitive and not really helping people. But what I liked about the video was, okay, so however it happened, this guy's making his money, he's still making his money. What is he doing with his money? And then what I loved about his, call it philosophy as an entrepreneur, is to be aware of the problem, but not throw quick fix solutions at the problem, like giving people money, but saying, okay, how do we solve it? What is the root cause of this whole thing? And so I like his statement to say, we then went and spend money on the invention of solutions. And you've got a state-of-the-art facility there. Looks like he's got a bunch of heavy, clever people who just experiment with stuff. And the solution he's offering there is probably the result of thousands and thousands of hours of failed experiments until they find something that is actually economically sustainable and accessible to the big market. So just that, well, a couple of things. I liked what he did with we call it the fertilizer, and his practical thinking of saying they left with 2% of this, the money after spending 98% that going out of the community and serve the big monopolies out there. And just by changing the fertilizer equation, he's now adding a further 20% in their hands, which is now upping their profitability from 2% to 22%. Now that in anyone's language is a massive difference. So I haven't fully, I haven't studied the thing on the water yet, but I think for me it's just the practicality of the whole thing, that it's not this hairy-fairy passion and then when it becomes too tough we move on. It's this stick it out to say these are the solutions, these are the challenges, and they won't go away. It doesn't matter which government we have and which certain circumstances we have. And within our economy now, he has the benefit of having some money behind him, but that the only time that money comes into the equation in terms of solving these people's problems is in the inventions he makes. So I get the idea, people still have to pay for that solar solutions, and people still have to pay for, you know, I don't know where they get that, but it's the fertilizer seems to be a very simple, practical solution, and he uses what's on the ground for the people. So I'm just saying, my mind was racing to say, how is that applicable in what we're doing in gig, and how can we get entrepreneurs off their backside to say, let's mobilize and forget this entitlement attitude of waiting for money to be handed to you, because money is not going to solve this problem. It's let's tackle things at the root cause. So I wish we could mobilize that kind of attitude with some of our rich people to build some of these hubs, these innovation hubs that will do some practical solutions. Yeah. So that's my ranting on top of Trevor's inspiring introduction.
Thanks, Jasper. And I'm not too sure if it was you that put Laura to sleep there, or whether it's just because it's 1 a.m. in the morning. But I've got a feeling it's probably the latter. But we'll be kind to Jasper this morning, so we'll say it's the fact that it's early out. So, Ed, your thoughts?
Yeah, having free will, I decided I wouldn't watch the video. And then I suddenly thought, well, actually, no, Trevor will be at me forever if I don't. So I watched the video. And I must say, I was really, really, really excited. But I was really, really excited about Father Christmas. And look how that turned out. And like Trevor, I was kind of wondering, well, why have I not heard of this before? Why is this guy not shouting from the rooftops? Because that video was made in 2008. No, sorry, 2018, wasn't it? So a couple of years ago. And I'm thinking, well, and I did a bit of digging. And the website's not that brilliant. If you go to the media bit, you would normally expect resources. You know, maybe some pictures, some articles, stuff they could use. It's just a contact page. And when you click the link for the terms and conditions, it doesn't work. You think, that's interesting. And then I went to the foundation site. The last annual report was 2018. And then I did a bit of thinking. And in 2004, when I was a director at COCO, which is a Comrades of Children Overseas, a charity that worked in Tanzania and Kenya, we were doing all that composting stuff because that's part of what we do. And we know that composting soil reduces the amount of water you need. He's not saying anything new with that. And I really did have lots of red flags start popping up. Then I went on the internet and I did some research. And I couldn't find anything about this project except for when it started. And in my mind, I'm thinking leopards don't change their spots. You know, the guy's got allegedly 4 billion quid. He's also got a huge number of lawsuits. You guys in the States don't half sue each other. And then I did a little bit of research around that giving pledge. And I couldn't find out much because I think, you know, it's kind of that these guys don't like giving much away. But there's a lot of talk about the fact that the guys that have signed up to the giving pledge have more money now than when they first signed up. And I'm not entirely sure what how robust American law is around foundations. But foundations are a very good way of giving your family jobs, high-paid jobs, with tax relief. And I'm thinking, well, if this is so good, why haven't we got stories coming out of India? Because in 2 years, with 4 billion quid, you could have put in lots of solar panels. And I loved it. I mean, he's absolutely spot on. The problem with technology in India or technology in Africa is that it gets broken and then doesn't get repaired. So those robust solar panel things, absolutely brilliant. And he's right about the water. But I know a firm that produces a filter that does exactly the same job without that complicated machine thing he came up with. Okay, brackish water is a different problem because salt is a major problem. But dirty water, there's a much simpler solution. And I just had all sorts of alarm. I want it. I so want it to be good. And I don't think it is. So I reached out to someone that I know does work in Africa. They've never heard of that. They're really interested in it, but they've never heard of it. And you would have thought with 2 years and 4 billion quid, you might have generated some interest. So I am really, really skeptical, and I don't want to be. I really don't want to be, because that to me is the solution. And also that thing, stage 2, that big lab that produces all sorts of wonderful things. It hasn't produced anything since the solar, and that solar briefcase, what a great idea. But it hasn't produced anything. And of course, India, being a vast country, has cold climates as well. So why is there no smart heat pump? Why is there no sanitation cure? Because, you know, sanitation is the other side of clean water. What do you do with poo? And it's a problem in India. So why has there nothing come out of stage 2 in all the time since its first launch? And why is there nothing on the internet about what's happened since? Because there isn't. There is some stuff that the Hands Foundation does in India, but all of it is about cooperation with other organizations. And I'm just not, I'm not sold. I'm open to buying, but I'm really not sold. I will do a lot more research, but yeah, because those things could be the answer, especially in Africa. But why in all those years with all this, and the guy is a salesman. Yeah, look at the way he's. I've never heard of 5 Energy either, so you know, it could be that I'm not connected as much as I thought. But look at the way he sold that. And he sold it aggressively. So why is he not selling this aggressively? Why is he not leveraging it? I just don't understand. So that's my thoughts. And on Jasper's how and why, I do think your why and your how are really inextricably linked. I remember one time with another charity that did work around human rights and things like that. It was the early days. I don't know whether you had them in South Africa, chuggers. They were like people that stood on the street and tried to get you signed up a direct debit to a charity. They didn't belong to the charity. They were employed as freelancers. They got paid commission on how many people signed up. And the whole principle was, once someone's got a direct debit, they don't cancel it. So and they got a bad name, and we call them chuggers. It's a cross between charity and muggers. And the organisation I was with wanted to use that as a way of raising money. And we were in a board meeting, and they were all saying, well, it's an effective way of raising money. And I said, well, so's prostitution, but I'm not sending my wife out on the streets. So I think sometimes you have to make sure your how and your why are compatible. So yeah, I just thought I'd throw that in because no one else has talked about Jasper's how and why. But yeah, I was really, 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 really excited by that video. And then I had my doubts.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Ed. Well, I'm pleased you obeyed the instruction and watched the video, because otherwise you wouldn't have had all that interesting input on it. And it is interesting, and one does start to question the why. You know, when you dig into that kind of depth of what's actually going on there. So I think Laura has fallen asleep on us now. So we'll go across to Leo next. Leo, I know your camera's not working, but is your mic up and running? And
is my mic up and running?
It is indeed.
Cool. Yes, so I only found the talk this morning at 7, and so I had a little bit of a look around at it. I was quite interested in this video. I only watched the 3-minute one, and then I started the 27-minute one, and then I thought, well, let me quickly go onto the internet and do a little bit of research. I'd never heard of 5-hour energy, and I thought, wow, you know, this guy started in 2004. You know, he's made 4 billion, not too bad in a 20-year period. And I thought, okay, so you know, he's doing something quite interesting. I liked his briefcase, and I liked his composting thing, and you know, the water thing looked a little bit complicated. But I thought, you know, here's a guy, you know, he's made 4 billion. He could have bought an island. He's doing something to try and contribute to make a change, and I was actually quite inspired by that. I was inspired firstly by, you know, how do you make $4 billion within 20 years? You know, because without any kind of money, you know, we could all sit here and waft on wonderfully, but none of us are doing any of those kind of beautiful things. So yeah, I thought he was onto a good thing. I don't know enough, and I, you know, haven't really researched enough. So, you know, I'm now cautiously optimistic, having listened to Ed. But yeah, you know, like I said, I hadn't heard of him. You know, I haven't heard of 5-hour energy. So, you know, I'm not too surprised that I haven't heard anything about what he's doing. You know, and it's only been 2 years. So I'm more open to say, well, you know, let's do some more research and see what he's doing. And I like you know, what he's doing. And if he can do that in Africa too, then I'm even more inspired. You know, so that's my little take on it.
Great, thanks, Leo. All right, so Lee, welcome back.
Thank you. So I think for me, it's not so much about his story in particular, but I kind of just, you know how thoughts go, you know, it goes, one thing sparks the next idea and the next thought and so on. And so it sparked 2 thoughts for me. The one is something that Trevor picked up years ago that that I referred to in our attitude program. And I was just checking to see, because sometimes you know, these things have a life and then they die, and they have a life and they die. And I'm going to just put the link into the chat box. And it's an organization called Good for Nothing. And what they do is that they don't, so I think the premise of this guy is we solve the problems of the poor through innovation. And I think that principle is brilliant, isn't it? So here, their solution to giving and sharing what they have so that others can benefit is that it's a gig type platform, and people who, it's sort of nonprofits, I don't quite know how they prove themselves as being deserving of needing fair, getting free services, but people volunteer a portion of their time to Good for Nothing. So I'm going to do good for nothing. And what I love about it is, of course, this play on words, because we've spoken about self-esteem and we've spoken about, you know, our giving and so on. So here it's the flip side of it is I am going to do good for nothing. And so, as I say, it's giving a portion of my time, but not just to, I've done that. I've done lots of painting of preschools and, you know, those kinds of things where I'm volunteering my time, but it's not really in my area of skill. Whereas these are lawyers, these are people, project managers and so on, saying, I will do a project. And trading my time to give you some benefit for nothing. So that I think it's just an alternative way of thinking about how we can contribute. And then the other thought that triggered for me around this innovation is this book, which I must be honest, I haven't finished reading, but it's in my pile of books, is The Bottom of the Pyramid. And just this philosophy of how can we get investment to pour into the lower LSMs, and that so it comes back to this whole thing of innovating for the poor, not to give it away, but to recognizing that the poor do have money and that we actually give them a place in the economy. We don't make them just the recipients. So it's almost, I'm flipping this good for nothing to say that this principle of innovating in a way that creates accessible products for the poor that's going to make a difference in their lives, that they are willing to invest in themselves, that gives them dignity and purpose and is meaningful in their lives. I think is something that we do need to investigate more, and I don't think enough goes into that. I mean, we keep referring to Elon Musk, and you know, his billions are being spent in the complete opposite direction, right? To the very top of the, you know, we're going to Mars, and I think if you think about, we need people like that. But where are the people that are now also in equal and opposite? And so maybe it's the Bill Gates of the world who are innovating in those ways, and looking for innovations and funding those innovations. But I think as entrepreneurs, I think there's opportunity there. So that's my contribution.
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, it is fascinating how, you know, one tries to understand motivations of people across the board, and you know, the thing that came to mind as you were chatting there, Lee, was Trevor and I came across a chap back in 2008, I think. Trevor, was it 2008, 2009? You know who I'm referring to. Guy who'd made an absolute fortune in the 2000 IT boom. And had a pile of pile of cash of note, but then got this complete guilt complex. And the way he justified his guilt complex was he built all these vehicles. He called them bicycles, I think, if I remember correctly, but it was just a terminology, but for lots of micro business opportunities, people in impoverished areas. And he had this whole program where he was, wanting to roll out these vehicles into these communities, and he was doing it, and he was spending a ton of his own money in the process of doing it. I think at that time, as I say, I'm now talking 12 years ago, 140,000 a month of his own money he was pumping into these ventures. And he'd come to us and was saying, I'm doing all this. I believe it should be generating revenue and profits, but I can't seem to find a way to monetize it. And I'm almost getting a sense of that with this billions and change character. And I think that's why Jasper's question about the why and the how is so important. What is the real reason that you're doing it? Is it a guilt complex or something else, or is it genuine philanthropy? And we can't judge other people's motives from afar. I mean, we can do the research, Ed, and we can try and work out what's going on and perhaps why it's going, why it's not going the way we believe it should be going, given those innovations. I mean, there's some great innovations. Yeah, some of them aren't particularly new. Some of them are reworks of ideas that have been around for a long time. I mean, he does claim to have impacted 40,000 farms in India. I mean, that's nothing to be sneezed at if that's genuine, and those people are producing quality food and not using chemicals, and have increased their profits, and that's all great stuff. But the question is, why is there not more noise about it? Why are the stories not coming out? And I mean, surely for him to put a couple of people on the ground to go and collect those stories and start making lots of noise at very low cost would be a simple exercise to do. And it would, speed up the adoption. I know there's a significant movement in the States, for example, in terms of sustainable farming. They use a different word for it, I think, where you've got these micro farmers, basically one family operations that are going back to multiculture, multi-product farming, all natural, getting back into the environment and those sorts of things, moving away from the big chemical and monoculture type environments. I mean, so there are tons of good stories around. Perhaps it comes back down to one simple thing, media doesn't like good stories. So those just aren't getting the airtime that all the bad stories get. I don't know. But innovation is definitely something that the world needs, and so maybe we need to try and find ways to dig in, as Ed said, and really want to support this guy if he is genuine and things are really happening. How do you actually tag onto that? And it makes me think of that story of Segun from our Nigeria summit, where he came across this guy who was, I think he was building roads or something. Lee, can you remember? I can't remember the real story, but this chap was doing some philanthropic work in Nigeria somewhere, and this chap didn't know him, wasn't connected to him, but picked up this project that he was doing and started really pushing it on social media. After a couple of years, this guy actually contacted him and said, really appreciate all you've been doing. You've done it for no other reason than you liked my ideas and what we were doing, and I now want to see if I can help you. And that sort of launched his career as a speaker and a coach and amongst other things. So comes back down to the why, I suppose. So Laura, are you awake? Are you with us? No, you're not really. But yeah, I don't know if you had nightmares or good dreams while you were...
It just comes and goes. You said, what's your why? What's your why? Who hears you? To give it as an acronym. People ask me all the time, what's your why? Who's your why? Who hears you? So I think I needed a little dose for a little bit so I can receive some of this. So I'm still assimilating. I'm becoming more and more saturated with all of the amazing knowledge that's being purported out into the universe. So as in the universe, one song, universe, one song. I will continue to assimilate the information that's put out there and have a dose on that. I will dream about it. I will dream about it. By no means is it any. It's time will tell. Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, you'll have to watch out for the Borg, because you know what the Borg say is resistance is futile, you will be assimilated. Anyway, that's a totally different topic. So
Oh, meow.
right, so good, there we go. So we have been assimilated by Laura. So I don't know where we go from there, but any thoughts for a topic for tomorrow? Yes,
Can I just throw in something from the beginning? I'm impressed that we are exactly on the same track. But I do want to put in that I have an open mind here. And that open mind is based on, I know how hard we have worked as a Wisdom's team to actually find individuals who align with what it is that we have been doing, and recognize that people have so many different priorities that a visionary has to perhaps push and push and push to create a movement. And just like you, I was so blown away with that video that my mind is turning around and saying, man, imagine if this guy is absolutely genuine, and imagine that he's had the chutzpah to actually open himself up to the public. I mean, he has made claims publicly that can actually be taken down, and that all he is looking for are other visionaries to turn around and say, hey, get on board with me. He hasn't been able to find them. And we are sitting here, and all we have to do is to actually get back to him and say, hey, look, this was our collective first impression. We've got an open mind. We want to believe in you. We really want to go with you. And he turns around and says, you know what, I've just been waiting for you guys to arrive. And that we genuinely find that this is a $4 billion train just waiting to hitch onto a group of people that have grown out of Wisdoms, and that Wisdoms becomes the international global part of, what did he call his operation? Billions for Change. To me, that's how my mind works before we actually write him off. So I just wanted to lend in there. There you go. You vow to actually, you like me, vow to or whatever.
I just wanted to say, Trevor, you know, I think we should make contact, you know, and I'm going to, and I've already passed his details on to a friend of mine who works, as I said, in a charity in Africa, and she's going to make contact with him. So, you know, yeah, let's not write it off. But I do find it really strange that, you know, 2 years ago, a guy makes this big video and this big sort of public thing. And there was a lot of press at the time. If you look at the articles, there were a lot of articles at the time, and nothing since.
It went dead.
Yeah. And it could be that, you know, you're right. I mean, you know, some people are visionaries, but they aren't doers, are they?
Yep.
So, yeah, I think we should make contact and see what happens.
Agreed.
Good. So all of that didn't give us a topic for tomorrow, but it was an interesting wrap up of the session. The thought that came to mind is, you know, if he is in that space, why is he not getting onto the X Prize and driving with that? Because there's lots of stuff happening there as well, and I'm sure his research and innovation projects would fit into the X Prize mandate quite nicely. So if you don't know about the X Prize, yeah, have a look at that as well. So. Right, so topics, come people. Yeah, we're supposed to be able to think in this group.
We haven't really sort of explored the one that Jasper brought up yesterday.
Okay,
Laura, yeah?
Analysis is paralysis.
Analysis paralysis.
We're supposed to be able to think, right?
Yeah.
Thinking, there's no doing.
Okay. All right. So let's do the why and the how of analysis paralysis tomorrow. So Laura, go and get some sleep. Rest up. The rest of you don't get tied up in analysis, and come back hopefully unparalyzed tomorrow, and we'll take it from there. So have a good one. Cheers now.
Cheers.